Dad, we're spending Christmas with Ethan's family this year. Please don't come. We need space. That was it. No, hi, Dad. No, I'm sorry. No explanation, just a cold surgical dismissal like I was a stranger she'd met once and couldn't remember the name of. I froze in the middle of my Scottsdale Villa's chef's kitchen, coffee cooling in my hand. My brain started scrolling through 30 years of sacrifices, every tuition payment, every wedding expense, every down payment, every late-night phone call where I said, "Don't worry, I'll cover it." I'd been the bank, the safety net, the first phone call in every crisis. And now? Now I was apparently not even worth a chair at the damn table. My thumbs trembled, not from age, but from the fury building in my chest. I typed 2 words, "Enjoy yourselves," and sent them, each letter tasting like rust and bile. But as the message whooshed away, something in me shifted. This house, this 7,000 square foot testament to decades of calculated risk, bone-deep exhaustion, and nights spent wondering if I'd survive. The gamble was not going to sit in darkness on Christmas Eve because my daughter decided I was disposable. I picked up my phone again and called my brother. "Daniel," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "You free Christmas Eve?" "Always." "Why?" "I'm hosting. My place. Invite people who actually give a damn." By the next evening, my guest list was locked friends, family, old colleagues from the days before life turned into constant withdrawals on my soul. People who had been there for the victories and had earned the right to share in the celebrations. And it was perfect. Laughter rolled through the rooms, wine sparkled in crystal, the fireplace bathed everyone in a golden glow. For a few hours, I forgot the sting, until Patricia, bless her oblivious heart, snapped a photo and posted it on Facebook. Less than an hour later, my phone lit up. Lauren's name. I answered. Her voice came like a blade straight to the jugular. "What the hell is this, Dad?" If this story touched your heart, press 1 inch the comments. If you think it could have been handled differently, press 2. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? Her question slammed into my ear like a siren, shrill, cutting, impossible to ignore. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch, not because I didn't have words, but because I wanted her to feel it, that pause where restraint keeps from turning into rage. My eyes swept the room. The formal dining table set for 12, polished to a mirror shine. The prime rib resting under silver domes, still releasing tendrils of steam. The wine breathing in crystal decanters worth more than Ethan's last consulting paycheck. This was the night I'd been building toward, and I was damned if her entitled tone was going to sink it. "This," I said, letting each syllable drip with finality, "is Christmas with people who actually want to be here." "Oh." A sharp hiss from her end. Then the click of disconnection. She didn't even have the decency to argue, just hung up, as if slamming a door on me through the phone. I slid the device back into my pocket, but the adrenaline kept burning in my chest, feeding a reel of memories I couldn't turn off. "My name is Michael Harris, 63 years old, Scottsdale, Arizona. I didn't inherit wealth. I clawed it into existence. Started in corporate consulting, graduated to high-stakes tech investments, and when everyone else was laughing at Bitcoin, I doubled down. I held through the chaos, ignored the doomsayers, and sold when the world finally caught up. A couple of well-timed startup equity exits later, and my modest retirement account had transformed into the kind of fortune that changes the way strangers look at you. Lauren Harris, my only child, had noticed it more than anyone. At 32, she had refined dependency into an art form. Stanford tuition, even after switching majors 3 times, a wedding that bled more cash than some people's lifetime earnings, an $85,000 gift for the down payment on her forever home, and a revolving door of emergencies that somehow always ended with my signature on a check. Her husband, Ethan Parker, treated steady employment like a contagious disease, bouncing between half-hearted projects and big ideas that never made it past the talking stage. Then there's Daniel Harris, my brother, retired firefighter, straight talker, immune to Lauren's theatrics. His wife, Rebecca, cut from the same no-nonsense cloth. First names on my Christmas Eve guest list. The rest? My real family, the ones who never showed up only when the money was flowing. Thomas Reed, my old business partner, the man who stood next to me when we closed the deal that made my first million, and his wife, Linda, whose warmth could disarm the coldest room. Mark and Janet Bennett, Friends from my old Phoenix neighborhood who proved distance doesn't kill loyalty. And Patricia Lane, tough as steel and just as dependable, who had been in my corner since the consulting days, celebrating every win like it was her own. These were the people I wanted in my home tonight. People who'd seen the long nights, the missed birthdays, the gut-wrenching risks when there was no safety net. People who respected the grind because they had their own scars to prove it. And the villa, oh, the villa wasn't just a house. It was my exclamation point. A 2-story modern desert masterpiece, locked behind the gates of one of Scottsdale's most exclusive enclaves. Floor-to-ceiling glass, framing Camelback Mountain, like God himself had hung the painting. A chef's kitchen flowing into a living room where a stacked stone fireplace soared 2 stories high. Outside, a heated infinity pool mirrored the fading sun. I'd bought it just a month earlier with one intention: to make Christmas Eve its grand debut. But instead of unveiling my life's work to my daughter, I was unveiling it to the people who'd earned the right to celebrate it. The chime of silverware against china, the hum of layered conversations, the soft crackle of the fire, it all wrapped around me like armor. Across the room, Daniel caught my eye and gave a small, knowing nod. Our unspoken pact was clear. Tonight was about joy, not guilt. If only Lauren understood that, but the chill in her voice told me one thing: she wasn't finished. And neither was I. It started harmlessly enough, or at least I thought it did. Patricia, never one to resist the lure of a perfect moment, stood near the fireplace, her phone poised like a weapon. She caught Rebecca mid-laugh at something Daniel had said, Thomas swirling his glass of dark red like he was inspecting a work of art, the table glowing beneath the chandelier like it belonged in a magazine spread. "Michael, you have to let me post some of these," she insisted, already scrolling through her shots. "Go ahead," I told her. "Let the world see what a real Christmas looks like." 5 minutes later, Facebook had its proof: Patricia's cheerful caption framed by photos of a flawless evening. Christmas Eve at Michael Harris's stunning new home. Amazing company. Unforgettable night. I didn't think twice. Not until my phone lit up. Lauren. Again. My first instinct was to let it ring out. But I knew her silence only made her dig in deeper. I swiped to answer. "What the hell is this, Dad?" The edge in her voice could have cut through steel. "Hello to you too," I replied, deliberately even. "Merry Christmas." "Don't play games. Patricia Lane just posted pictures of some huge party at your house. Why are all these people there and we weren't even invited?" I took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the warmth of the room seep into me while her frost bled through the line. "You texted me saying you wanted to spend Christmas quietly with Ethan's family. I assumed that meant you didn't want to be here." "That's not what I meant, and you know it." "Then maybe you should have said what you meant." Silence. Then that laugh, the low, disbelieving one she used when she was shifting from hurt to fury. "You invited everyone except us?" "I invited people who wanted to spend Christmas with me," I said flatly. "You made it clear you didn't." Another pause, this one sharper. I could hear her breathing change, speeding up like a storm about to break. "Where did this house even come from, Dad? How can you afford a place like this? And why didn't you tell me?" There it was. The real question. Not about being left out, but about not being in control. "My finances aren't your business, Lauren. This house is the result of decades of work, calculated risks, and knowing when to move." Calculated risks? Or hiding money from your own family?" she snapped, her tone now openly accusatory. I stepped into the hallway, away from the hum of laughter, away from eyes that didn't need to see this. "Lauren, I'm not going to be interrogated about what I've earned. You made your choice for Christmas. I made mine." "This isn't over, Dad," she hissed, her voice tight as a clenched fist. Then she hung up. I stared at the screen for a long moment, her last words echoing like a warning shot. I knew that tone. I'd heard it before, always when a request for money hit a wall. This wasn't about being hurt. This was about losing her grip on the reins. Back in the living room, Daniel handed me a glass of wine. He read my face instantly. "She called?" "Yeah." "She's not mad about Christmas," he said, voice low. "She's mad she didn't get to decide who sits at your table." The truth hit like a brick. For years, she'd been the unspoken architect of our holidays, dictating who came, what was served, even the timing of the gift exchange. I'd let her have that control because it felt like keeping the peace. But standing there, surrounded by genuine laughter and the clink of real camaraderie, I realized something: peace. Purchased with submission isn't peace, it's surrender. I told myself she'd let it go. She wouldn't. Lauren didn't cool off. She plotted. She built cases in her head and waited for the moment to strike. An hour later, Daniel caught my eye from across the room. "You okay?" he mouthed. I nodded, but we both knew it was a lie. Patricia passed me, topping off her wine. "Your daughter's going to see those photos," she said knowingly. "If she hasn't already." "She saw them," I said. "And she's not happy." Patricia's eyes narrowed just a touch. "Some people aren't happy unless they're the center of the universe." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. Same name, same number. This time I ignored it. I tried to lose myself in Thomas's stories, in Rebecca's laughter, in Janet's good-natured holiday disaster tales. But my eyes kept drifting to the foyer, half expecting the door to swing open and the night to turn. Outside, the desert had gone still and cold, holding its breath, and I had the unmistakable feeling that so was she. I finally switched my phone to silent and slid it into my jacket pocket like I was sealing a vault. If Lauren wanted to keep hammering my lines, she could do it into the void. She wasn't going to bleed this night dry, not when the air was thick with laughter, clinking glasses, and the kind of genuine warmth I hadn't felt at Christmas in years. Still, Daniel caught me stealing another glance toward the foyer. He drifted over, glass of wine in hand, his voice pitched low. "She's not letting this go, is she?" "No," I said, feeling the truth coil in my gut. "She's furious. But this isn't about Christmas. It's about control." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's been steering your holidays for decades. You just grabbed the wheel back, and now she's choking on the view from the passenger seat." Before I could respond, Thomas Reed stepped in, setting his glass down with a soft thud. "Sorry, couldn't help overhearing," he said, glancing between us. "This about Lauren?" Daniel gave a single nod. Thomas gave a humorless chuckle. Linda's brother used to be the same way, mid-40s, still expecting her to bankroll every whim. The year we finally said no, he iced us out for 6 months. Then he came back, working a real job, suddenly very polite. "Did it stick?" I asked. "Long enough," Thomas said with a shrug. "Some people only learn respect when the free ride screeches to a halt." Rebecca wandered over next, then Patricia, then the Bennetts, each drawn by the gravity in our voices. Within minutes, we'd formed a small circle in the kitchen, the hum of the party fading around us. Patricia swirled her wine before speaking. "You know what's dangerous about family who take advantage? They make you believe enabling them is love. But it's not. It's a padded cage they stay comfortable enough to never change." Janet nodded. "My father always said, respect isn't inherited, it's earned. Family doesn't get a free pass." Mark leaned an elbow on the counter, his gaze locked on me. "Michael, you've been more than generous with Lauren. You've paid for things most parents wouldn't even consider. But generosity without boundaries? That's not kindness, it's a leash. And she's the one holding it." Their words landed heavier than I wanted to admit. These weren't people tossing out feel-good advice. They'd watched me live this cycle for years. They'd seen the blind spots I kept refusing to see. "You don't owe anyone your dignity," Daniel said quietly. "Not even your daughter." It hit like a gut punch. Because deep down, I knew it was true. I'd been holding on to a version of Lauren that no longer existed if it ever had. The little girl who once rode on my shoulders at the 4th of July parade was gone, replaced by a woman who tallied love like a ledger of payouts. The conversation drifted, but their words stayed with me, coiled tight in my chest. I refilled my wine, feeling the smallest crack in the weight pressing on me. And then sharp, unmistakable, a car door slammed outside. Then another, footsteps on the gravel, heavy and unhurried, like they had every right to be there. Rebecca caught my eyes, flicked toward the windows. "Probably just a neighbor coming home," she offered, but her voice had a question buried in it. I wanted to believe her, but those footsteps had a rhythm measured, deliberate, and deep in my gut, I knew exactly who they belonged to. The pounding started 20 minutes later. Not knocking, not a polite press of the doorbell. Pounding hard, insistent, punishing blows that made the solid oak shudder like it was about to splinter. Conversations cut off mid-word. Wine glasses froze halfway to lips. Every head turned toward the front entrance, faces shifting from surprise to unease. "Open this door right now." Lauren's voice ripped through the winter air, high and serrated, cutting straight through the walls. "I know you're in there, Dad." I set my glass down and walked toward the foyer, Daniel shadowing me like a bodyguard. Lauren? I called through the door, keeping my voice level. Lower your voice. We can discuss this calmly. Don't tell me what to do, she shrieked back. You don't get to exclude your own family because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. Her words made a couple of my guests flinch. Then Ethan's voice, quiet, hesitant, almost embarrassed, followed. Come on, Michael, just open up. We can work this out. One glance over my shoulder told me everything my friends' faces radiated a mix of sympathy, second-hand embarrassment, and quiet fury. Daniel leaned close, his breath low and sharp. Don't you dare apologize. Her tantrum is on her, not you. The pounding grew harder, faster. Soon my neighbors would hear it, and by morning the whole gated community would have a front-row seat to the Harris family meltdown. I reached for the deadbolt, not out of submission, but to end the public spectacle. The second the lock turned, the door flew open so hard it slammed against the wall. Lauren stormed in, eyes blazing, Ethan trailing behind like a man half-dragged by a leash. How dare you, she spat, pointing a shaking finger at me before scanning the room, crystal stemware, panoramic glass walls, the glow of the fireplace. How dare you throw some party and exclude your own daughter? This is a private dinner, Patricia said coolly from the edge of the group. You're being incredibly rude. Lauren Spindelner, Phänomen Herklare. You're the one posting pictures on Facebook. This is your fault. Patricia didn't flinch. I posted pictures of a beautiful evening with friends, that's all. It's inappropriate because I wasn't invited. Lauren's voice pitched higher, cheeks burning crimson. I stepped forward. You declined in writing, Lauren. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Oh. The absurdity of it was setting in grown adults, most well into their 60s, watching a 32-year-old meltdown like a petulant teenager denied dessert. Ma'am, you need to calm down, Thomas cut in sharply. Don't you dare tell me what's acceptable, she shot back. This is between me and my father. Daniel's voice came from behind me, ice-cold, decisive. Not anymore it isn't. You barged in here and made it everyone's business. Oh. Ethan tried to interject, voice barely above a whisper. Maybe we should just... No, she barked, silencing him with a glare. Then, without warning, she whipped out her phone and started tapping furiously. What are you doing? I demanded. Her eyes met mine, a slow, smug smile curling her lips. Calling the police. If you won't listen to reason, maybe they'll make you. The room erupted gasps, muttered curses, chairs shifting. For what? Linda asked, stunned. For stealing family Christmas, for hiding assets, for elder abuse. That last accusation hit the room like a live grenade. Guests stared at her, mouths open. Daniel muttered something that would have blistered paint. I didn't move, didn't try to stop her. The faint wail of sirens crept into the background, growing louder until red and blue lights bled across the villa's glass walls. 2 officers approached, one older, gray at the temples, the other young and carrying a tablet. The veteran spoke first. Good evening. We received a complaint about excessive noise and a possible domestic disturbance. I'm Sergeant Robert Morales. This is Officer Jake Turner. Lauren rushed to them like a plaintiff to a jury. Yes, thank you for coming. They're having this loud party and completely harassing me. Morales' eyes swept the room well-dressed guests. Soft jazz in the background, not a hair out of place. Then his gaze settled on me. Sir, is this your residence? Yes, I said evenly. We're having a quiet Christmas Eve dinner with friends. Yes, it is, I said, my voice steady but cold. We've been having a peaceful dinner party since 6 o'clock. Officer Turner's eyes swept the room, immaculate table settings, crystal glasses, the low murmur of conversation. How many guests are here tonight? 10, I replied. All of them invited. Lauren's voice sliced in, brittle and venomous. Invited except for family. He deliberately excluded us. This is elder abuse. The accusation made Sergeant Morales' brow crease. Sir, do you feel you're being abused or threatened in any way? I didn't blink. Only by the person who called you. Daniel stepped forward, his tone clipped. Officers, I'm his brother. This morning, Lauren sent Michael a text saying she and her husband wanted a quiet Christmas with his in-laws instead of coming here. Officer Turner looked up from his tablet. Do you have this message? I do, Daniel said, already pulling it up. He handed over his phone, and Morales read the thread slowly, his jaw tightening. So you declined the invitation in writing, Morales said, his eyes locking on Lauren. That's not what I meant, she shot back, her voice rising toward a shrill edge. He twisted it on purpose. Turner's reply was diplomatic but firm. The message reads pretty clearly, ma'am. Ethan finally spoke up, his voice tentative, almost apologetic. Maybe we should just go home and... No, Lauren snapped, turning on him with a glare that could cut glass. They need to understand this is unacceptable. Morales straightened, his tone now all business. Ma'am, from what we see here, there's no excessive noise, no disturbance, and no sign of abuse. The homeowner is entitled to invite whomever he chooses into his home. Lauren's face flushed a deeper red, her voice trembling with anger. But he's hiding money from the family. He bought this house without telling me. That's not a criminal matter, Morales said flatly, and it's not something we're here to resolve. Turner glanced at his tablet. No other calls have been made about this address tonight. Ma'am, did you contact us because of something you saw on social media? Lauren hesitated, just long enough to confirm the answer. Yes, but it's the principle. Morales and Turner exchanged a glance that said everything waste of time, waste of resources. Morales's voice was clipped now. Filing a false or misleading report is a serious offense. I'm going to need you to move your vehicle. It's blocking the driveway, and allow these people to finish their evening in peace. For the first time since she'd stormed in, Lauren's posture sagged. Her voice dropped to a brittle mutter. This isn't over, Dad. But it didn't carry the same force anymore. The officer stood by as Ethan steered her toward the door. She resisted halfway, throwing one last look into the room, as if searching for a shred of authority to salvage. But every gaze she met was tired, disappointed, or simply done. Once they were outside, Morales turned back to me. Sir, you handled this well. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, Sergeant, I said, my voice measured. I appreciate you coming. The patrol car's lights faded into the desert night, leaving the villa still again but not untouched. The tension she'd dragged in hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Daniel's hand landed on my shoulder. She came here to take the narrative back. It blew up in her face. I nodded once, but in the pit of my stomach, I knew the truth. Lauren never left the battlefield without a plan for round 2. I could have let it end there, let her stalk off with the sting of the police's dismissal still burning in her pride. But she didn't leave. She stood in the driveway, arms crossed, her glare fixed on the house like she could burn a hole through the walls. She wasn't gone, she was regrouping. Invite her in for a private talk, Daniel murmured beside me. If you've got something to say, better to say it without an audience. At least to start. I stepped into the doorway. Lauren, I called, voice even. If you want to talk, we can do it in my office, alone. Her brows lifted in surprise before a smug smile crept in. She thought she'd won. Fine. I led her into the office off the main hallway, a room lined with leather-bound volumes, floor-to-ceiling shelves, and the massive walnut desk I'd had shipped from Italy. Ethan trailed behind but stayed in the doorway, staring at the floor like a man wishing he could disappear. I never meant for it to go this far, she began, pacing like a trial attorney. That text about Christmas with Ethan's parents, I assumed we'd still come for dinner. We've always worked things out before. You never mentioned dinner, I said. You never asked about my plans. You assumed you could decide them. That's not fair. It's a simple question, Lauren. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Not to ask for help. Not to hand me a bill. Just to see how I was? Her silence was answer enough. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through our messages. Here are your last 10 texts. Car payments late. Roof needs repairs. Ethan's between jobs again. Do you see the pattern? Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. I just need to know you'll be there for me. You need my money, I said flatly. That's not the same thing. Her eyes narrowed. This is because of Daniel, isn't it? He's always been jealous of us. Oh, this is because I've finally realized we don't have a relationship. We have a transaction. Her voice softened, her eyes shimmering with sudden tears. Please, Dad, don't do this. I'll change. You've had 30 years to change. The mask dropped. The tears vanished. What came next was pure rage. She spun on her heel and stormed back toward the living room. By the time I caught up, she was planted dead center, addressing my guests like a prosecutor before a jury. I want everyone to understand something, she declared. My father has been hiding money from our family for years, millions. He bought this house in secret. Where do you think that came from? Thomas Reed's eyebrows shot up. From his investments and hard work, same as mine. You don't get it, Lauren insisted, her voice rising. He's been manipulating financial records, hiding assets from me. That's enough, Daniel snapped, his voice sharp as a blade. Patricia stepped forward, unblinking. I've seen Michael's portfolio. Every cent is legitimate. The only thing you were left out of was a dinner you declined. Mark Bennett added, Didn't you buy Bitcoin in 2011, Michael? And invest in those startups that went public? I nodded. And 2 more that got acquired. Lauren's face flushed darker. But he never told me. Rebecca's voice was glacial. Why should he? You've never cared about his life unless there was something in it for you. Even Ethan shifted. She's right, Lauren. Lauren's head snapped toward him. You too? I'm not taking sides, he said, voice low. I'm just done pretending this is about Christmas dinner. The air turned heavy. I stepped forward, my voice steady and final. Lauren, I want you to leave my home, and I don't want you back. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more. You're tearing this family apart over nothing, she shouted. Over nothing? Daniel's voice cracked like a whip. You called the police on your father. You accused him of abuse. You forced your way into his home. Her eyes swept the room, searching desperately for a sympathetic face. She didn't find one. You'll regret this, she spat. No, I said. You ended this, the moment you chose manipulation over love. I walked to the front door and opened it. Cold desert air swept in. Ethan hesitated, then stepped through. Lauren followed, her heels striking the marble like gunshots. This isn't over, Dad, she said at the threshold. Yes, I replied, locking eyes with her. It is. The door shut between us with a clean final click. For a moment I just stood there, my hand resting on the deadbolt. The air inside felt different, lighter, freer, as if shutting out that one toxic presence had lifted years' worth of weight from the walls. Behind me there was no awkward silence, no sidelong pity. Instead, Thomas began to clap. Slow at first, 3 deliberate beats, then Patricia joined in, then the Bennetts, Rebecca, and finally Daniel. It wasn't applause for a show. It was recognition for a man who had finally drawn the line. You handled that with more grace than she deserved, Linda said, her voice warm but edged with truth. Daniel stepped forward and gripped my shoulder. I've been waiting 30 years for you to do that. I'm proud of you, Mike. The rest of the evening unfolded like it belonged to a different lifetime. Easy laughter, unguarded conversation, the kind of joy that comes only when every soul in the room actually wants to be there. By the time my guests began gathering coats at 2 a.m., the hugs were longer, the goodbyes more genuine. Thank you, I told each one, for being here, for supporting me, for being my real family. When the last set of taillights faded down the street, I walked through the house slowly, seeing it for the first time as mine. No strings, no debts, no silent bargaining. In the kitchen where the night had begun, I brewed a fresh cup of coffee and stood at the window, watching the desert sky lighten with the first fragile streaks of dawn. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Thank you for showing us what real courage looks like. Another from Daniel. You didn't lose a daughter tonight. You got your life back. I thought about the years ahead, years that wouldn't be shaped by obligation, manipulation, or guilt. I could travel when I pleased, host the gatherings I wanted, spend holidays without walking on eggshells. Fill this home with appreciation, not demands. As the sun crested over the mountains, washing the villa in gold, the truth settled over me like a benediction. The greatest gift I had ever given myself wasn't the house, the investments, or even the freedom to roam. It was the courage to claim the respect I had spent 63 years earning. Christmas had finally come home.